In this episode, we will look at the star-fort cities which were only for the royal elites and their families throughout Europe, known as the kings and the dukes and the nobles, and their peasant slave workers. The rest of the world actually lived outside these small walled cities and outside the star-forts in the wild. And we will look at the history of cotton and the history of wool and see who really had clothes in Europe and throughout the world, and who was naked just a few centuries ago. We will look at the evidence, and we're not going to have any imagination. Where do you think cotton or wool comes from? And who controlled the sheep at the time just 300-400 years ago? Now, once we understand this, it will change world history. Yes, the walled cities actually show that the people of Europe were not Christians or Muslims or anything else, and that the majority, they were naked, living outside the city walls, and they didn't have homes, and they didn't have any animals as livestock, and they were without cotton, and they were without wool, and therefore they were naked. So anyone fighting about race or nationality or religion, thinking it was their family history, they are just wasting time, and they're just following the hatred that is found within the ruling elites. And this is their history, and that is why they fight each other. And today we've learned their history, a lot of it, and we're fighting about this history amongst ourselves. Not only this, the people who were outside these city walls, yes, they had no proper languages. Yes, and all the history and the religions and the languages were given to them only recently, when the walled cities were destroyed after the fall of Constantinople, which was known as Rome. Yes. So we're going to have a look at this properly in this episode. Some of the peasants, yes, or beasts that they call them, which are mentioned in the Bible, and the Bible is their history, it is the actual history of the Middle Ages, yes, lived within the city walls, and they learnt a few words because they needed to learn some words, and because they were working, they were slaves for the elite, and they had a few clothing, but they weren't actually allowed to wear the exact clothing as the elites. Well, anyway, these people, these peasants, pests or beasts, were not seen as human, and this is why they invented the story of evolution, about life coming in raindrops from outside the earth in other parts of the universe. And then they said they arrived and landed onto the planet Earth, and then they evolved and became monkeys, and then further evolved and became humans, because they believe, the elites, they believe they are the gods. Or they are the pure bloodline, or many of them believe that they were chosen by God. The religions and the history of the wars and the religious divisions, these crusades and these wars, it's their history. And the rest of the world entered into these religions only in the last 200-300 years as a fall of the result of the fall of Rome or Constantinople. And Constantinople fell because of Sultan Fatih Mehmet or Sultan Muhammad. Yes, and there is too much historical evidence from the last few centuries which clearly show that the people in Europe were actually naked and illiterate, without proper languages and without any clothing. And the elite wrote down in their history and called these people peasants, pests, beasts, or barbarians. We will examine these things in this episode. We will start by showing modern India and Pakistan, and then move on to Europe and other parts of the world. And we'll examine the evidence of how people survived naked in cold temperatures in cold places, such as northern China and northern Europe. There is actually too much evidence, so we don't need to invent history or imagine things. We will go through a lot of this evidence in this episode, and it's going to take about 3 hours. Yes, this history is actually very important, because if the people of the world realized that most of them, more than 80% of them, they were outside these small star forts or outside these walled castle type of cities, which were very small, then the people will know that the Crusades and the history that we are told is not the history of the people. And these historical hatreds and this nationalism and this religiosism, yes, has nothing to do with the people of the world. This actually changes world history for the majority of the people of the world, because the majority of the people of the world and their ancestors lived outside these walls. They didn't have these animals or livestock. This is why they were a lot shorter, and the elites were much taller and were known as giants. Yes, the people lived outside, basically naked. They had no land, they had no industry, they had no schools, they had no homes, they didn't have anything, no technology, no languages, and they lived basically naked. This is the sad reality for the majority of the people, but the evidence is available if anybody wants to check it, and we are going to examine this evidence in this episode. Let's roll.
Welcome back, David. Thank you very much for joining us again and presenting more of your information. We are most excited to continue this journey together. Welcome, David.
Nice to be back. Now, many people have not really studied some of the small details in history. And of course, they've lied about the timeline. We are aware of this, that they lied about when ancient Greece existed and ancient Rome. But, they invented the story of evolution. Now, when I talked about it, about the beasts mentioned in the Bible. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm glad somebody pointed out in one of the comments. I'm not calling anybody beasts or peasants. It's the God of the Bible, who is calling ordinary people beasts and peasants, and that's what the New World Order is about. That the people at the top are at the top, and at the bottom is the peasants. Yes, or the pests or the beasts. So that's what the Bible does, and the Bible actually goes through the hierarchy. Yes, it shows what their rights were, which were nothing. And I pointed out that, look at many of these star-fought cities people are talking about, and they're all small. Yes, they're all very small, a few hundred people inside them, that the majority of the world didn't live inside them. In many of the star-fought cities, yeah, we'll look at it if we can get through in this episode, or it will be in the next episode. I'll show examples of them that you could basically just fit about 30 to 50 people inside. That's it. Yes. And everybody else is outside. They're like
if the
animals.
old drawings are correct at all, even for example for
Many of the
Vienna.
old drawings and paintings, I'm glad you mentioned them, because many people don't actually visit museums and anything or look at some of these paintings. You'll notice that many people were naked, but they painted over them in the last 50 years or 100 years. Do you know this?
I didn't know about it. I was just referring
Not
to
only
that
this,
you
many
can.
people don't bother to read some of these documents of the late Renaissance and after, where they're telling us that the people in Northern Europe were totally naked. They were naked just before the 15th, 16th, 17th century. They're telling us this. Yes, they call them barbarians. Yes, and they're saying that they're fighting Rome and they're fighting Byzantium. They're fighting naked. Yeah, they were barbarians without a language, without anything. And we all know it was illiterate. Well, anyway, let's have a look from the other side of the world. And we'll go
Yes.
through the question, because many people are saying, yeah, you can put the first image, saying, hey, they wore clothes. What clothes did they wear?
Yes,
You can't
let's
even
have a
grow
look
cotton
at the people. I just
in
wanted to
Northern
mention with
Europe.
the old images that it's very clear with the star forts. You can easily see that on these drawings, they are all very small, the star forts. So yes, just to confirm what
Yeah,
you
it's
said.
not just the drawings. We can actually go and visit these walls of the star forts. Most of a lot of the walls are still there in many of our cities throughout Europe. They actually exist, and many star forts are actually they're not broken. But anyway, here we have in Pakistan, and there's people there who are in the desert, and many photographers went in charity groups. They're actually giving them, clothes. There's 50 million people just on the border of India and Pakistan, known as the Thar Desert. Yes, and you can see that people are just totally and absolutely naked and things like this. And many of the people, they don't have a proper language. Many of them can't even speak properly, and they've lost the ability to speak because they didn't learn a language or anything. Go on to the next picture. So we soon see that slowly these people are coming into the cities. But what's important about this region is it's become a desert region. It's becoming more and more of a desert. I mean, Eastern Europe was like this just 50 years ago. Yes, in Romania, in Bulgaria, in the Balkans, in many places. Yugoslavia was a bit better. Yes, because factories were there that the Western Europeans bought, but those clothes were made in machines. Look at the color from petrochemicals and other things. Yes. So, and we can see they've come to the city area. And then if you don't send them to a school, they've got no language, they've got no understanding of anything, and they really don't know anything. Next picture. Yeah. Yeah. Next picture. Yes. So we can see many of these people are living in mud hut places. They're in poverty. And the thing is, some of them have formed families because they've lived closer to the city. Next picture. But these people are living in cotton growing areas. And it's very important to notice this. Yes, that lands that are used by for cotton growth. Yes. And as we could see, it's like, Jesus leads us to Sunday school. Yes. It says in this picture, the next picture. So what we can see is that, many people are opening schools. Yes. Yes. In these places. We see that there's floods in some of the city areas because they've just come and they've constructed things that are very bad quality. Millions. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they're victim to many pedophiles going from all over the world, and things like this. There's many gangs involved in kidnappings. We don't know what's happening to these people. It's a sad story. And so we find even in Afghanistan, people, many of them don't have a proper language. Yes, you actually have to teach them. Next picture. Yes. So the thing is, somebody will say, that's over there. But soon we're going to have a look at the world. The world was naked. Or a large percentage, 150, 200 years ago, before these people are wearing the fabrics made of cotton, polyester, and other things. Next page. Yes. Next page. And here we can see many people all over the world. They were actually just eating basic food if we give it them today, or they were just actually eating mud. So this raises the question of what are humans? And yeah, of course, we came from the earth and they were just eating clay. And it's strange. Nobody mentions this, but the Quran mentions it. It mentions that you were made from clay, not just water, etc. So people were eating clay, and so our biological makeup. It's like the thing is when we eat meat, it's like when you eat chicken. Chicken is a little bit of meat. Sheep is a bit more stronger. Then cow meat is even more stronger. You can see it from the chicken bones that you could actually break it. The cows and the sheep's bones are a bit stronger, and the cow's bones are even more stronger. So humans are growing bigger and physically stronger. Now, the next page, you could see that there's millions of people who are just poor. I'm focusing on India and Pakistan, especially that border region, yeah, because of the cotton. It's like why that land is poor. Also, it's because we are growing cotton over there, and many people have got no idea that we would be naked. Yes, if we didn't. The next page. Yes. So in India, Indian children, there's hundreds of millions of people, poor people like this, who are just basically naked, and no one knows, where they came from. So now the next page. So now the next page, the thing is, what many people don't know, the page after. Yes. Yes. So what many people don't know, I will read this. This is data, not just from the United Nations, but many of these people in India and Pakistan, for example, just in India and Pakistan, I think it's about 60 to 80,000 deaths a year just from growing cotton. Yes, just in India and Pakistan. And many people have no idea about this, and they're turn around saying, why are all these Indians in Australia, England, Canada, the United States, and Pakistan? It's like they're because they've given their land and other things, and they've made money, and some of them have moved up, and others have come as workers, and their families are connected to the trade. So what many people don't know is that if we get rid of them on this side of the world, even though somebody could turn and say, "Oh, there's 10 million of them," let's just say in US, England, Australia, 10 million people from India, Pakistan, or 20 million. Yeah, what we don't understand is the deaths, 200,000 people a year just from the cotton farms. Then from those countries, it's like not just from growing cotton. What we've also got is then processing the cotton in the factories and turning it into fabrics and materials and clothes. Yes, and there's thousands of deaths connected to them. We're talking, a million dead people in 5 years. Yes, just from growing cotton, growing the cotton. And the thing is, people are protesting about Palestine, and I mentioned many of these protesters are fake protesters. Yeah, it's in my book, New World Order. But who's protesting about a million deaths, a million dead people just to grow cotton? And that's just for us in this side of the world. So when some people are saying that the elite want to restrict and bring the carbon taxes, next page, picture of the cotton. Yes. So when people are talking about it, we've got these people who are half naked. Many of them are kidnapped, and they've kept them on these fields, thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands of them, working throughout the world. And many of them are just kidnapped people. They don't give them any cash. These people, they don't know cash. They don't even have proper language, had no education. Yeah, the woman's wearing something there because she's working as a slave, same like the biblical slaves. Those who were given a bit of clothes just to get the work done. Many of them died. They don't care. Yes. So the thing is, they call it suicides. Yes, India's farmer suicides and things like this. But the truth is, yeah, and they'll say we found chemicals in their body. God knows what it is, but other people say no, it's just a setup. They're hiding it. They're dying from the chemicals of growing cotton. It's because in Europe and America we want to wear clothes. In Australia, Japan, in Korea, in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, in Taiwan, in the modern places, Malaysia. You know what I mean? We want to wear clothes, so we don't realize these things. Yes, next picture. So now we will talk about the reality in Europe. So you could read this. Here, people are talking about just their grandparents, in the 1930s and 40s. Yes, and they posted this online. Yes, what is she saying? Or he in
My
Austria.
grandmother is always talking about how she used to walk to school barefoot in the winter. Is this something that people actually did? I can recount
Yeah.
a story from a friend who also mentioned that even just a mother in Transylvania still was walking a kilometer or two to the school barefoot as well. So many
In the
people should be able
1990s, they were doing it.
to know about this.
I saw it myself, in many places when I traveled. And so the thing is, the shoes, many people are complaining about the migrants and the immigrants. Many people don't understand what's going on with the trade deals. They don't. Yes, and we can't even make a pair of shoes. Yes, so the next page, and you could read the next page. These are people in Europe, in Germany, in Ireland, in England, France, Scotland, Canada, US. What does he say or she?
So Therese here says, my father often went barefoot as a kid because his parents couldn't afford shoes for all their kids. And of course, they walked to school. He grew up in rural Ireland, born in 1927.
So he's going to school in 1940. Yes, when he's 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, basically, no shoes. God knows what the clothing was like. But this is 1940. Yes, and don't forget, urbanization means the number of people who lived in cities, yes, was even more less than today, half compared to today. Next page, and you could read this.
Here Susan says, depends on where they lived and how old she is. Shoes were luxuries in the early 1900s, especially in rural areas, in southern states where it rarely snowed. If it snowed, work boots were more common than shoes. Children often did not get shoes until school age.
Yeah, work boots. It's because my name's Rockefeller or Rothschild, and I'm you're age 12. Yeah, you know what I mean. Hey, peasant, pest, beast. You got to work in my factory or in my mining, so throw him a pair of those boots. You see, or the people didn't have anything, so you know So the next page, yes, you could read. This is in India. Yes, in India, in my childhood.
So, yes, here it says, in my childhood, there was no practice of wearing footwear. Only the people working in the field used to wear it, as there were many thorns. All others were not using any footwear, including my teachers. We were used to it and we never felt any discomfort.
Ah, yeah, the schools. Who cares about your education? But you're a peasant and a pest, and you're working for me. Yeah, you understand? In my fields, in my cotton fields in India or something. So don't worry, you're going to get the free shoes. Oh yeah, there's a peasants' revolt. Ah, he's just died, suicide. You know, no more revolts. Next page, you could read this. Bill,
Here's Bill
what Bill has
says,
to say.
yes, I well recall this being quite normal during my school days, 1933 to 1942. I also recall it being quite normal in Germany after the war during occupation. So that would
Yes,
be after
yeah,
45. Yeah.
yes, after the war. Yes, so the thing is, people there were shanty towns in Paris, like tree boxes, wooden boxes in Paris. Many people don't even know about this. Yes, people coming from the countryside. Next page, you could read this. So the thing is, how did the world? When did they start wearing shoes? People are saying, "Oh, our ancestors had clothes and everything." When did they start clothes? Who made the clothes? Yeah, we got to be realistic. I'm not somebody who's going to invent something. Yes. So the thing is, yeah, they invented the story saying evolution, you fell down in raindrops, you came from out there in space and everything. I'm talking about the history and the alien invasion, the fake things or whatever, so that people can judge and realize the lies in history, the lies of evolution. But some people turn out that, oh, David's saying this, David. No, I'm not. I'm reading out whatever. And here is the reality. So you can read this.
So here Jen says, oh, I can answer this one. The question is, how are people able to walk barefoot without injury? And she says, I've always loved to walk barefoot. It never hurt because when I was young, I wasn't forced to wear shoes. I had them, but I didn't like how weird they felt. Your feet adapt to the environment and your feet get tougher and your skin gets thicker. The only bad thing out of this is that I got flat foot from this. I still
Yes.
walk
So
barefoot.
now
Don't
this is
have flat
very
foot
important.
anymore. It's great.
Yeah, right. This is very important because we see that in some Asian people, because the places are poor, and other people, because at one time it was poor 50 years ago, they've continued the tradition. So they're walking like with a flat foot, and their feet, people are thinking are like different or something, or that's because of that. But the thing is, it's like because India is still poor. The next page, look at this picture. So many people are thinking, how can people do this? How can they walk on fire? I mean, this is ridiculous. And so people are saying, how did they live in Northern Europe naked? So how some of these people, yes, you can. Some people can walk on it. Other people can sit on these stones of fire just made of coal. They can actually sit on it in India or lie down with their back. They don't get burnt. They don't get anything. So the question of human biology, what are we? It's like I could jump a lot more, like parkour and all these things when I was younger. It's like even now, yes, when I dance, I could jump very high and everything, and I can still get on my head and twist around and all these things. It's a question of what is human biology? How does food affect us? What is actually food? And what they're telling us for health, and people were eating mud. And the thing is, how long have they been modifying seeds? Because when we see what they did with the rubber things, but we'll soon go through the quotes more. Read the next page.
Why does my grandmother think I should be barefoot walking around the house and outside all the times? Is the question. As a kid, your grandmother was told, go outside and play all the time. Most kids didn't wear shoes outside when playing. Shoes were expensive. Our parents were kids during the Great Depression and may have had one pair of shoes. That they shared with siblings. People were very poor.
Yeah, that's basically, her name is Elle. And so the thing is, Great Depression is in the United States, New York, I'm guessing. God knows where she's from. But basically, yeah, people are telling you. Yes, the thing is, the shoes, they only had them when they started making them in the factories. Yes. So on the next page, so now this is what people imagine. So there's commenters who've already commented on my videos because they've not researched this. They've not had a look at the entire production of shoes from different parts of the world, the raw materials. And so people turn on and say this, read this. I've seen it myself these days. In the last 20 years, people in the Middle East still walking, yes, very long distances without shoes. Yeah, with the stones and everything. Couldn't believe it. I've seen it in Asia. I've seen it in Latin America. People are actually doing this. But no, still somebody's going to say a comment like this. In fact, I'll read it. Yes, this Ramona, who probably hasn't done much study, is turn around and say, your grandmother may have walked to school, but I can assure you she did not walk barefoot in winter or any other reason. My parents used to tell similar stories to that. They always used to tell me how they walked 5 miles to school. I'm not sure I believe that either. It's because now we've got life so easy and simple and everything. We know languages, we know how to speak, and we just imagine humans have, and people had schools that they learned languages, that they just naturally knew all these words. They didn't. We just imagine, especially the religious fanatics, yeah, who imagined that people were reading Bibles and that they were Christian, or reading Qurans and that they were Muslim, that they had these dictionaries, that they knew the meanings of the Bible or the Quran. No, they're all just fake. It's all fake history. Yes, and that's what's causing all the wars and the problems. Yes, and the hatred. The fake history. It's time we realize these things. Yeah. So the reality is, yeah, I'm talking. There's people who are still walking 2 or 3 kilometers to school. I mean, I don't like saying this, but I knew a girl. I knew her personally, and she used to walk 5 kilometers, yes, to school. Yes, around in the 1990s, and she used to walk that far, and sometimes she had no shoes. This was in Morocco. This is someone who I know personally. You see? Yes. And then I went there and I saw, oh my God, people are actually doing this. Next page. Yeah, people are actually doing this. Yes. So now the thing is, this is what they're telling us about medieval shoemakers. You could read this.
The shoemakers of the time were faced with the challenge of producing a wide variety of shoe types with limited resources. Their creativity was not only evident in the design, but also in the skillful use of available materials and the development of new manufacturing techniques.
Now that's what they're going to tell you in history. People are going to read this garbage. Oh yeah, those who think they're clever, I mean the dumb ones, are going to put loads of comments and whatever. Let's be realistic. Let's look at these walled cities. They're all small. How many shoe manufacturers inside there? And where are all the materials coming from? The materials used to come into Europe. There was only one big city, Istanbul, or known as Jerusalem, Constantinople. So all the other city makers and everybody went there for exchanges, this and that, and everything. And the coins that we find there are Arabic, yes, and a few things with Latin, or what they will call Greek. A few of these coins, but many of them look like forgeries. And then we spoke about in the last video about the American Masons. By the way, if anybody checks, half of the excavations of Athens and everything found all the Greek coins, all the statues on all the everything was by Americans in the 1920s. Yes, by these Masons. Yeah. And they were also doing it, finding the other half in Turkey, and Turkey mysteriously hates Greece, but they were saying, oh no, we found all these Greek things in Turkey, which shows that Turkey is Greece, ancient Greece. Yeah. Next page. So the reality of the history, people are going to imagine it, but no, it's like inside the walled cities, they probably had one shoemaking. It wasn't a shop. It was for me, for my family. I am the ruler of this city. I got my brothers, sisters, cousins, parents, grandparents, and a few other people, and they're making shoes for the soldiers and everything else, not for the peasants. Maybe if the land was unworkable and I need food, so for some of the peasants I'll give them shoes, but for them nothing. By the way, it was against the law for the peasants to dress like the ruling families. Many people don't know this. Yeah, soon I'll go through it. Yes, and you used to get punished if you dressed like their women. Their women used to wear the chapeau or the hijabo, and their women always had to cover their hair. Yes, and they had to do things, and the dresses that they wore are similar, like how these Muslims wear the dresses today. So back in the days, they didn't want you to dress like that then, and they don't want you to dress like that today because it's their dress code. And the only people who are wearing that dress code, soon I'll go through that. Yeah, later are the Muslims. So of course, yeah, the Muslim fashion, the hijab and all that. We can't have this. It has to go. They have to look like all the other peasants and the pests and the beasts who are naked. Get them all wearing skirts in school, shorts and all these things because they were naked before, and they're always going to be naked because they're pests, peasants, and beasts. Yes, people, you can study this history yourself, and then you'll soon start thinking, they've told you it's all about freedom and everything. Yeah, next page. So this one, shoemaking. Yeah, you could read this.
Until the 19th century, shoemaking was a traditional handicraft, but by the century's end, the process had been almost completely mechanized.
Yes, so basically the world didn't have any shoes until the industrial manufacturing. And so when it became like, by the time the factories were organized, it takes 100 years to set up the production system and everything. Yes, it took that long. Yes, if you look at the speed. Yes, so when I say the end of the century, not even 100 years, it was by the 1850s and 60s, factories were running. So it's like they started around 1800 or before then, smaller factories in the 1750s or 1700. That means somebody wanted the world to start wearing shoes around the 16th century. What happened in the 15th, 16th century so that, the peasants are allowed to have shoes when they didn't want any of the pests and the beasts? Yeah. So anyway, so on the next page. Yeah, so many people are saying, yeah, why do many Chinese people walk this way and whatever? Because many of them came from the villages, the flat shoes and how they sit on the floor and many other things. And so the walk is changing now. Yes, the thing is, but anyway, look at the next page. Where we see some pictures. So here we see a picture. Yes, 100 years ago, in England. Yes, they brought these peasants, kidnapped them, gave them some clothes. But look at the next page. And as you will notice, yeah, even in these factories and even a lot of them when they did mining, because they didn't have that many boots ready, so it doesn't matter, it's in the cold. Like some people will say, in the north they had shoes, like in New York. No, here is in England, in the north. Yes, Germany, Scandinavia, they still didn't have shoes. Yes, I'm being serious to you. Yes, they didn't have shoes. Next page. So you'll see many of these pictures. You'll find hundreds of pictures. So I had these pictures ready because some uneducated, idiots, yes, put comments and saying, oh, David thinks that we didn't have shoes or didn't have anything. No, you didn't. Yes, have a look at these walled cities, and that you will even see the layout. And they had somebody making the shoes, somebody making the belts, somebody making the swords, somebody making the trousers, somebody making the shirts, somebody making this and that, but they were only for the palace royal family. Yes, and if the palace royal family decreed for the soldiers or anybody else, that the walled cities didn't have room to manufacture for the rest of the people. And then the cotton that was grown in the walled cities, they didn't have the cotton or the wool or anything. That soon we're going to go to who owned the sheep. There wasn't even a single sheep for the peasants or the pests or the barbarians. So I don't know if you're going to say they had animal skins. You're still dreaming. Yeah, it's because many people don't want to accept the history that when they talk about Great Tartaria, look up the word Tatar. Yes, they were Muslims, whatever these Muslims were. Yes, and nobody wants to accept it. All these Arabic coins, Northern Europe. Next page. So what do you notice about these pictures, about these kids?
Well, how should I say?
No
I wouldn't say
shoes.
this. Yeah, well, no shoes, of course, and also the way they look is interesting, I would say.
They're slaves. They've kidnapped them and they've brought them. So the next page. Yes, the next page here we see a bunch of kids. And go to the page after, and then you'll notice on the page after, I've already enlarged it. Yes, and you'll notice. What do you notice? Yeah, no
Well,
shoes and
some
things
have
like this.
shoes, some don't, yeah.
Yeah, some of them, yeah, because manufacturing over the years. Yes. And so the thing is, even inside the factories, yes, it doesn't matter if they're in Scotland, if they're in Denmark, if they're in Hamburg or wherever. Yes, so the next page here is a factory where the clothes, they're wearing the white clothes, and you can see basically many of them have got no shoes, and they're actually making the white cotton. Can you see it in the background? Or these
Yes.
people were naked without the cotton. Yeah, so the next page shows another factory where they're making the cotton so that they could wear clothes. And so the page after, you'll see that they've got no shoes. Many of these, even many of the women, yes, they didn't have shoes. It's a lie. And they wouldn't have even had the clothes without the cotton. And the cotton doesn't grow in Northern Europe. It grew in the South in America, in the South in Europe, along the Mediterranean, along the Caribbean, along that. So look on the next page. Yeah, you'll see that they kidnapped people, gave them clothes from the cotton and everything, and the people were slaves. They were basically slaves, and this is how they treated them. It's just shameful. And look on the next page; it's even worse. When you look at this, you can see the man there. It's like thinking, why should I work? We've got all these pests and these beasts and peasants. So now the thing is, people are still imagining the clothes in Northern Europe, and they're showing us pictures, 400 or 500 years ago, alleged pictures of people in Northern Europe wearing cotton trousers, cotton shirts, the Roundheads and the Cavaliers, and they're wearing all this cotton. All the cotton was exchanged in the south, in southern Spain, southern Italy, and in Istanbul from the cotton that's grown, a little in Greece, a little in Turkey, brought from India, and from Babylon. Cairo was Babylon. That was one of the biggest production centers. Now, I mentioned that Cairo did not exist. It didn't until they built it. And it was named Cairo, Kara, named after black, like in Slavic. The famous woman in Croatia, I love her a lot, Ava Karabatic. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. Kara means black. Kala means black in Sanskrit. Yes, it's similar to even the Slavic languages, and that's why Cairo was called Kara, named after black magic or the Black City, because of Babylon. Yes, and that's where they compiled. They say the language Koine Greek came from the Black City or the city of black magic, Cairo, and that's where they say the 1924 Quran came from also. Yes, the city of Kara or the city of black magic. That's where we get the word choir from, or core for the heart, of how to target somebody's heart with black magic. And that's why you get the word call, like call, to call out or to read something out loud, is in the Germanic languages. And that's why in Arabic they'll say call or kullu or kulhu in some Arabic dialects. Yes, and that's why it's called Quran. Yes, it's like a choir or you're reading something out loud. And so the thing is, there is, because the famous side of reading this was black magic. And so that's why in the Quran, it even tells the history that Muhammad was accused of being a poet, because many things rhyme in the Quran. And then it says, no, these are not the words of a poet. Yes, that's another long story. I'll go through it. But the 1924 Quran, which was compiled under the British, yes, known as the Hafs Quran, was created in Babylon, or the city of black magic. That's why this manuscript, yes, is famous. Same like many other, the biblical manuscript of the New Testament is in Koine Greek from the same region, and the Old Testament mysteriously disappeared, but it turned up in the country of black magic, or the country land of Babylon and Alexandria and things like this. That's a long story. But anyway, you could read this about cotton. Yes?
Approximately 75% of the world's clothing products contain at least some amount of cotton. In sheer numbers, cotton is the most widely used textile fiber in the world, and manufacturers can spin this fabric into a myriad of different types of products.
Yes. So basically, for our clothes, cotton, etc., and things like this. So without it, the people were naked. This is the reality. Yes. So this is the reality. Now, when we go on to the next page, so now today we've got cotton and polyester. Now, the thing is, polyester is from petroleum and other things. And so some people say, no, it's not just petroleum, it's plants, and the scam about petroleum. But that's another long story. Yes. So the thing is, it increases it from more than 75%. And so now on the next page, we have a map there. And so, in America, along the border, yes, along the border, Mexican border, and in the south. This is today, but 100 years ago, there was a lot more cotton farming. Yes, in Mexico, and we can see it's in Africa. And so, but go to Europe, enlarge the European side. Yes, Europe and the Middle East, and then it's because some people are just being pathetic, and I'm trying to make people understand. Get it a bit more to show. From Spain all the way to Japan. Yes, that region. Yes, yes, with yes, a bit more. I can't see Japan. Yes. So now what we will notice is that from Spain to all the way to Japan. So now in China, many of the cotton farming regions are in the north. Yes, what we would call the north, but those fields weren't developed until they brought the peasants. And then, in Russia, in the south, there is regions there, but there was less people there. And what we've got along is Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan. And then for Europe anyway, yes, the intensive cotton farming 500 years ago was southern Spain, known as Andalusia, where the riches were. Yes, because you made a lot of money from this because people were desperate for clothes. Yes, especially the elites, because there was thousands of them in these walled cities. Their families, their cousins, wives, husband, they start to maintain these walled cities. And then you've got the region near Greece and Turkey. Point that out. That is the most important place, with Istanbul in the middle. And then you've got Syria. Yes, and the province known as Antakya and all this and all these places, in Turkey. And then you've got Babylon. Babylon is where, in Cairo, where hardly anybody lived. Cairo didn't even exist. So they brought many workers, from Europe and from India. So there were all these people there who couldn't read, who were naked. That's why you see in many hieroglyphic pictures the people are actually naked. Yes, because that was the Middle Ages. You know what I mean? Ancient Egypt didn't exist. So the thing is, today, the biggest cotton producer is basically Pakistan. Can you see it on the other side? Pakistan and India along the border regions are basically, it's Pakistan, and second would come China. So many people are saying, what is the importance of Pakistan for the rest of the world's clothes? Or we're going to be naked. So, and the thing is, in Greece and all these regions, we've still got it today. And the thing is, that's why they're bringing all these foreign workers in Greece. And in the Balkans, it's a mess. But the thing is, that's why Constantinople was very important. The rich fabrics, this, that, and things like this, all the clothes for the elite, for all the cities throughout Europe. Think of in France, in Germany, in Italy, throughout the Balkans and throughout Ukraine, Poland, Russia, the walled cities, they went there just for the clothes. It became the biggest city in the world. So the next page, yes. So in the next page, what we can see is that central Greece, it was one of the regions, and yeah, the Ottoman Empire, or whatever you call it, during the Middle Ages, controlled it. Yes, and so this trade was so big, and the British commercial relations, 1855 to 70, until the British, Manchester, where I live, was processing the cotton to turn it into fabrics, the biggest cotton industry city in the world. So they before they realized they could grow it in along the Mexican American border. Yes, the thing is and the develop cotton production and the trade in Izmir in Turkey and things like this. That was one of the major places in the entire world for the cotton. So now on the next page, like today, like now, in some places in France, because they've changed the farming things, but currently cotton is only produced in three. You could read this. It's because these people seem to think that they had clothes in Northern Europe. Read it. Let these people know. Yeah, let them know.
Currently, this is from the European Commission of all places. Currently, cotton is only produced in 3 EU countries on around 320,000 hectares. Greece is the main cotton grower with 80% of European cotton area, followed by Spain, mainly the region of Andalusia, with a share of 20%. Bulgaria produces cotton on less than 1,000 hectares.
Yeah, and France can grow it, same like Bulgaria. So I don't know what these people are talking about, saying that they had clothes. Yeah, where did they grow these clothes? Huh? Were they walking all the way from Germany? There was no roads, there was big bushes. We didn't have machines to cut the grass or anything. There were like foxes, strange animals, God knows what there was out there. Wild pigs, wild dogs. It wasn't like today. The dogs were okay, saying, hey, this is my pet Buster. Hey, it's Buster out in the forest. No, Buster would eat you alive. Yes, and all the other humans who didn't have languages and everything, it was like the world was dangerous. So now on the next page, yes, you could read this. So Istanbul, yes, what they call Constantinople, or it was actually called Rome. There was no Rome. This was Rome. You see, it was the wealthiest city in the world. Read it. What was this city?
Istanbul, during most of the Middle Ages, the latter part of the Byzantine era, Constantinople was the largest and wealthiest city on the European continent.
Yes, and so now on the next page, so Constantinople, Istanbul is on the Bosphorus. So the thing is, because they've modified the Bible many times, they want to hide it. But what do we know? You could read it. It is mentioned.
Real Jerusalem, Part 5. It is mentioned only once in the Bible in the book of Obadiah 1:20. Jerusalem on the Bosporus to the
Yes, so
nearby
where is
Sepharad.
Jerusalem? Where is this big city, the greatest city, Jerusalem? What is this city?
Constantinople,
Yes,
Istanbul.
Rome. Istanbul was Rome. Yes. So, and then in all these, you could read the next one. So this is in my book, Jerusalem is in Europe. So, and my book goes through more of the evidence, but you could read this. The next paragraph, Jerusalem on the
Jerusalem
Bosphorus.
on the Bosporus, painters seem to know well where the crucifixion took place.
Yes. So Jesus Christ lived in Istanbul. Yes, this is the reality. And so now here is South Korea. Yes, and North Korea, 100 years ago. Without this cotton, the people wouldn't have wore the clothes. Now let's look at this picture. This woman doesn't even think it's normal to wear clothes. She doesn't even cover her breasts. That's clear. You could see it. And so they're there and they're building the city of Seoul. Seoul didn't even exist. Yes. So now on the next page, this is from, I forgot which city. I think it's Sichuan, Chengdu. It's freezing like Germany. This is how people were dressed there, 100 years ago. It's freezing there. So if people are saying in Germany, they couldn't have lived naked. This was in Sichuan province just 100 years ago. Now, the next page, you could read this out. Chengdu, the biggest city in Sichuan. What's the weather like there today?
Seasons in Chengdu, weather and climate. Nights are usually as cold as 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And in January, temperature may drop to 2 degrees Celsius or 35 degrees Fahrenheit, or even a couple degrees below freezing point.
Oh, so these people, they live there, but somebody's trying to tell me in Frankfurt, where it's got similar temperatures, no, they didn't survive. What are the people talking about? What is everybody talking about? Yeah, it's because nobody is studying. They watch a video that David does or read a book, and then they just put a comment. They don't do any study. These people are idiots. Yeah. So when you see these comments, yeah, go out there and study it yourself. Now, Seoul, South Korea. So the people are basically naked. They've just got some cotton on. They're working there. They're living there 100 years ago. They're actually living there. So they've got whiter skin. In South Korea, they've got white skin like in Europe. Yes, but if you went to Hong Kong or Malaysia, they look darker, like Mexico. Yes, or like the Middle East. Yes, you know this, don't you, Raphael? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the Koreans look whiter. Now, what is the climate
Yes.
in South Korea? You could read this. January?
So climate of Seoul, January is the coldest month in Seoul, often with the lowest temperatures, almost always dropping below minus 10 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and sometimes below minus 15 degrees Celsius,
Yeah,
5
I've been
degrees
there when it's
Fahrenheit.
minus 20. I've actually experienced minus 20 there at night. I've experienced it, and God knows how these people survived 100 years ago, 0 degrees, minus 10. So they were there. They were there. They built the city. They were there 100 years ago. Do I need any more evidence, Raphael? Do I need any more evidence to prove that people lived in naked in this weather and they survived and they were eating mud? They weren't farming. They couldn't read, right? They couldn't do anything. They were naked until the cotton. Yeah, this is South Korea. Do I need more evidence that they stayed alive naked?
Well, not for me. I can't imagine how that would work exactly, but yeah,
Oh,
humans are
okay, so
miraculous, I
now let's
guess.
go on to the next page. So now people, even in Northern Europe and China, they're going to say, oh, they wore sheepskin or whatever. So now let's see, even today, sheep.
So it's about domestication of the sheep. Sheeps are not an important part of China's agricultural economy, since the majority of China does not have the large open pastures required for sheep rearing.
So how did they live in 0 degrees minus 10 in northern China? Sichuan Chengdu is only halfway to Beijing. If you're going to go from Hong Kong to Beijing, it's halfway. It's similar climate like Shanghai in the middle. Check on the map. Check on the map before you start imagining things. So they don't have no sheep. They didn't wear the wool or anything that they're showing goes, oh, these people in the war, they wore wool or sheepskin or something. It's a lie. It's a lie. So now on the next page, the Roman Empire didn't exist. So now even here, you could read the next page. Yes. So
This is from Cotswold woolen weavers on the sheep's back. 1,000 years earlier, the Roman Empire had brought sheep to many parts of northern Europe, and English looms had clothed the Mediterranean legions.
so now this is what they're telling us 1,000 years ago. But wait, didn't the Romans come to England 2,000 years ago? So even the dating and things, it just doesn't make sense. And we can't even find Rome. Yes, people should read Flamenco's books, look at our previous videos. Was Rome there in the 14th century, 15th century? Was it there? Did it exist? We went through the maps, everything before, and the
Right.
population and everything. Was it there? Did it exist in
Well,
Italy?
from what I've seen, not really, no.
No, it wasn't even there. It's a lie. Yes, so now the next page. Yes, so now they're telling us the Romans brought sheep to England 1,000 years ago, but the Romans came 2,000 years ago. They say Julius Caesar, 55, 54 BC. So now here is what people are saying. And when they do realistic study, they find there is problems. The official history is what the Cotswold woolen weavers say. So now when people are studying in universities, this is what people have to say. Yes.
Edinburgh University Press says sheep and deer highland sheep farming 1850 to 1900. The introduction of large-scale sheep farming into the highlands in the late 18th and early 19th centuries
Is a
is a
subject.
subject about which a great deal, and then it goes
Yes,
on.
there's a lot of controversy. People are thinking, hey, yes, we can't find no sheep and everything in Northern England, in Scotland, and something. Yeah, that it's clear they were introduced recently. Yes, in the last 200 years. Yes, so that's another problem. In England, we've got a problem that many people are speaking out saying, hey, it's not true. It's just garbage. It's just garbage. So they're going to tell me. So now let's have a look at this. Here is an example of just a city in Europe on the next page, Pavia in Italy. Yeah. Oh, you've not got Pavia? It went to. Okay, so here it is, Istanbul. Yes, 100 years ago, 70 years ago. It's the greatest city in the world. That the walls are so big that they're doing the farming. They've got all the sheep. They've got the cotton. They're doing everything trading between all the world. Everybody went there for exchanges. Like if your daughter's getting married, yeah, you went there once every 3 years or every 5 years. You went there for the pilgrimage. You went there for knowledge. You went there for science. This was everything. Normal people didn't go there. The peasants didn't go there because they had all the horses. They had everything. They went there with the soldiers and knights. The average wall city had 50 knights. The small ones are some had 100, 200 and whatever. But the thing is, this was the reality. Yes, that's 70 or 80 years ago. Now go on the next page. Yeah, and this is Istanbul today. Yeah, a city with millions of people, but the land was used for farmings, and the other thing is you'll see many great so-called buildings that they call mosques or cathedrals. Yes, in the previous picture, but that's a long story. That it had to do with water. Now go on the next page. Yes, yeah. So here is Pavia. You could see it. This is a star fort city. with the church in the middle. It's for the water supply and everything, and then the moat around it, or whatever you could say. And the thing is, the peasants weren't allowed in. And so the inner part of the city and everything was where the royals and their families and other peoples lived in those buildings. Then they had the soldiers and things like this, and many of the upper workers who made clothes when they brought back the fabrics from Istanbul, or brought back the wool and the other things, and brought back the other things, because you only went there once every 3 or 5 years, you see, and you went back and you brought the trading things, and then you used it as raw materials. The peasants did the work, and the quarters where you keep the horses in some of these buildings, the sheep in some of the buildings. We're talking about the entire food supply for your family, the chicken for whatever, and your family's got 50 members or 100. Now, where are the peasants living? They're not there. You see, they were naked, they were outside. Now go forward to the next page. Yes, now here is an example. Now what you will see is that, read the first paragraph.
Bad events that happened to the Irish. The Irish
Just the
have
first
went through.
paragraph is enough. Yes.
The Irish didn't speak English or French. Instead, some of them spoke Irish. Some of the poor and homeless people didn't speak anything, and all
Stop.
they knew.
Stop. Wait a minute. People who cannot even speak, woo, woo, not just Irish, but many people from Europe who went to America in the 1880s, 1900, 1920, 1930. Many humans couldn't actually speak. And they used to call them Irish or Rush. Anybody who's, don't forget, east of Poland was classified as Rush, Russian territories, even the Balkans. They just called them Rush, you see? So they just call them Irish or Russians, you see? So many people think it's Irish. Yes. So the thing is, if you came from, let's say, Czechoslovakia, you're Rush, Irish. If you came from Hungary, Eastern Hungary or Romania or Bulgaria or ex-Yugoslav countries, the Russians, you see? So the thing is, and then Irish or anybody. And so what is it? Just repeat that part of the sentence, just that part, what you just said. Some of the poor people.
Some of the poor and homeless people did not speak anything.
Because they didn't know what a language was. They didn't went to school. Nobody taught them. It's because people didn't actually know. This was the transition period. Yes. And so carry on reading the rest of the sentence.
So some of the poor and homeless people didn't speak anything, and all they knew was how to plant and work all day. But some knew a couple
when they did
of
that, they
Irish
got
words.
food, a bit of soup and a bit of raw bread or something. God knows. Yeah. So that's all they were given. Even in Europe, they were doing that 150 years ago, 100 years ago. But some of them, some knew.
It was really, well, some knew a couple of Irish words. It was really hard for them
I'll tell you
to find a
something.
job.
If you're going to meet people, let's pretend you've got 500 people there. 50 people from Vietnam, 50 from Cambodia, 50 from Hong Kong, 50 from Malaysia, 50 from Indonesia, 50 from China, 50 from South Korea, 50 from Mongolia, and they're not speaking Chinese, but the local dialects, the poor people. Yes. So now, will you know what language they're speaking, or will you say, oh, some of them knew a few Chinese words? Because here we stereotype, oh, they're all Chinese. Yes, that's what they'll say. They knew a few Chinese words. So they said they knew a few Irish words or Russian words. The truth is, they knew a few words, 10 words, 20 words, come, go, sit, whatever, or 100 words. That was it. And then, so people didn't have a language. And the Irish represented, a quarter up to a third of the people who went to America, Canada, Australia, and came to England. 1/3 of the people we're talking about here. Yeah. So about these people, what do they say?
It was really hard for them to find a job since they didn't know any of the languages that were spoken in Canada.
Yeah, any of the languages. They didn't know German, they didn't know French, they didn't know Spanish, they didn't know Italian. We're talking 1/3 of the people who came from Europe. Of course, they're going to say, some people will say, oh, they were all Irish. Yeah, they weren't. A lot of them were Rush and other things and whatever. But can't you see there's something wrong here, Raphael? Humans who can't speak a language, like basically mute, and then they eventually lost the ability to speak because they didn't develop their tongue and their neck. Can you not see this? Or people can, you can do a deep study of this. Yes. But once you study this, you'll find that this is the case today in many places, even in the Middle East, in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia, in India. It's still the case today. I've met people like this. You see? Can you understand this or you can't? That humans need to be taught a language. Otherwise, we actually don't know language. Can you actually
Makes
see this or
sense.
you can't?
Sure, makes sense. It's just
Yeah.
amazing that this only happened 150 years ago or something, that you had these
150,
cases.
250 years ago when they invented the languages. But what made them cause this? Now, if anybody reads my books, Skull and Bones and The Last Crusade especially, why did they create the languages and why was it important? It's because after the Prophet Muhammad destroyed Istanbul, Constantinople, and the so-called Muslim crusaders or whatever, attacking all these cities, breaking all the walls throughout Europe and the Ottoman Empire, everything. Yes, they actually destroyed the elites. That is what happened. And they said, no, you've got to get the clothes that the elite are wearing is for everybody. The language is for everybody. And that's why the Quran, they opened these mother Russias or madrasas, and they started the process of first. Yes, the Quran only has 500 basic words. Many of them are in Germanic languages throughout the world in many languages. That's why Arabic was what was it? 400 years ago. What was the global lingua franca? What they say. What was the global language 400 years ago?
Well, yeah, Arabic, from what I understand, no?
Yes, yes, those 500 words, and it wasn't normal Arabic. It was the Arabic of the Quran, the basic words. So that's where, yes, Muhammad actually did the global revolution, and then they had to invent languages and everything for the peasants and the pests, thinking, damn, these Muslims aren't going to stop. They're teaching people how to wear clothes, how to do this, how to do that, and teaching them technology of masonry. Yes, so that these people could move forward. That's in my book, Science of the Kaaba. Now move forward about 30 pages. Yeah, until you get to the page 33 degrees. Go fast. Go fast. We'll come back and go to this information another time. Yes. And we'll go to it another time about the languages, because that's a very deep subject. Yeah. Keep going. Keep going until you get to the picture, my book 33 degrees. Yes. Yeah. Go forward. Go forward another 2-3 pages. Go forward another 2-3 pages. Yeah, past this. Now stop. Now you can read this. Go back. Yes, and read this. This is the reality.
This
Both
is from
paragraphs.
the BBC. The babies who nap in sub the babies who
Zero.
nap in sub-zero temperatures. Would you put your baby or toddler outside in the freezing cold for their lunchtime nap? Many Nordic parents wouldn't give it a second thought.
Next
And
paragraph.
then from Business Insider, parents in Nordic countries have their babies nap outside. In Nordic countries like Denmark, it's common to let babies nap alone outdoors, even as cold as minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes, it's because when you look back, the people were naked, and some of these traditions have continued. And that's why people got wider, because we can clearly see that the Koreans, they don't look any different from the Vietnamese. Yes, but or the people in Hong Kong or Guangdong province. They're the same, but why is one darker and why is one whiter? Yes, it's like I traveled throughout the entire region, and it made me question. And so the same thing, it's like when you're going from Northern Europe to down to the Sahara Desert, you see the people look the same, and then why is one whiter? Why is one darker? Why does one have curly hair? And all these things. A lot of it is to do with climate and other things. Why is one taller? Why is one slimmer? Why does one look like this and that? It's to do with climate and with food and diet and other things, but they're lying to you. And no, people want to believe it's their race. So now the next page, yeah, you can find videos on this in TikTok. Go, people are doing it today. Yes, so you could read this. Why babies are left in the cold in Norway. So as you can see, they're leaving their babies outside. So here, We have TikTok. You can look at all these videos online. People can find them on YouTube, everywhere. They're leaving babies outside in the cold. God knows what temperatures, even as cold as minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit or centigrade or whatever. So you could read this. Yeah, in Norway, they leave their babies.
Yes. Why babies are left in the cold in Norway? They leave their babies because it's safe, but also because it is cold. Norwegians believe that the cold helps babies to have better health.
Yeah, so there is something. So now on the next page, yes, many people are talking about it because it's common. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Northern Germany, Denmark, yes, Holland, and things like this. So people are saying sleeping outside was for babies in the early 1900s. It was common. It's because many of the people came from the villages and they used to live outside anyway. And they thought, oh, we're living inside a box now in these houses. And many of these houses were small and poorly built and everything. And there were shanty towns made of wood and anything in many cities. So the people found it strange to live inside the boxes. Can you imagine if you're going to go to India and you're or in Africa and you're going to bring these people who can't speak proper languages and everything, and you're putting them inside a box called a house, and they're not used to it? Can you imagine this? The transition period.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we can see this on the next page. Here is pictures, in the 1960s. Yes. They're going to say it's for their immune system, but there was a lot more to it. There was something else. It was to do with the eugenics movement before the 1960s. Many babies were on purpose left in the cold because it made their skin wider and many other things. They're just leaving them 0 degrees or whatever. This is from Moscow. Yes, so many people do this actually because it makes the skin go wider. So, these are the kind of things that have been happening throughout the world for a long time. But many people just don't want to accept this history that people were naked, people cannot survive in the cold. Do you think they can't survive in the cold if babies are outside in the cold?
Well, I mean, they seem to be having some clothes or something to keep them warm other than
Ah,
that, but
what? We're talking 0 or -10. Babies, babies taking that cold air into their lungs. Come on, let's be
yeah,
realistic here.
apparently they survived it, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and so the thing is, and looking at the realistic history of the sheep controlled and in these city walls, and then that nobody could make clothes and the people couldn't even speak, and they didn't even have shoes and clothes before the factories. Were the people in Northern Europe and throughout Europe, the pests or peasants and the beasts, did they have clothes? Could they speak? Were they Christians? Were they any religion? Were they any race or anything? They didn't live in the cities. What were these people? Were they like animals? Yes or no, realistically? Just 300 years ago, 400 years ago, when Muhammad did his revolution.
well, it seems most didn't have a religion, nor a language, nor clothes. So I'm not
Yes.
sure if that
So
makes you
now,
an animal, but yeah.
yeah, I'm using the words that they're using in evolution. Now, I don't want people to say David said it. I'm using the words that the Bible's using, that they're goyim, they're animals. You know what I mean? That they're not human. That God only created them so that they could be, the animal slaves for the ruling families. That's what the Bible and other books related to it say. Now move forward. So now we can see here. Here is go back. Here is a walled city in Morocco. So what happened is after Muhammad did his revolution, the peasants were outside the city walls like here, but they had no clothes. Here they're wearing cotton. So they were. This is an example. I'm giving an example. So all over the world, 300 years ago, the peasants were naked. They had no language. They had no nothing, no shoes, no clothes. It was only inside these cities, yes, where the ruling families were. Once you understand this, many people have got some crazy idea. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Italian families, or these Persian families, or whatever, the 12 ruling families. Yeah, there is more to this. We'll do it in the next video, hopefully, or the one after. I'll show who these real ruling elites are in the families. Go to the next picture. So here is, they call it the Peasants' War. So here is one of these walled cities where the ruling family stayed, the power station, or call it church, or whatever you want to call it, and then the military building and all these other things. And so many of the peasants, they were actually naked. Like, go on to the next page. So after Jesus Christ and Moses had their revolution, and what happened is the Cathars and a few others, yeah, they refused to accept the ruling elite, and they said that we refuse to be ruled by anybody. This is in my books, Jesus Christ. If anybody's not read it, I'm not going to go into it deep, or Skull and Bones, and the Last Crusade. But they basically threw them out of the cities. They took them over, the ruling elite, the families of the bloodline, and said, "No way! They're spreading this book called the Angel, or the Injil in Arabic, or Evangel in Greek, or the Evangel." Yes, in modern languages. So basically, they threw them out and made them naked again, saying, "Hey, you go out with the rest of them." You see? Yeah, no way are you going to become like us wearing clothes. No way. Learning how to speak? No chance. Yes, it's only us who are allowed to be human. So that's what they did. You see? So on the next page. Yes, you could read this.
Medieval History Geek says, first it appears to further debunk the old "the world fell apart" post-Roman and naked peasants spent their miserable lives grubbing in the
Yes.
dirt, I presume.
Yeah, so the thing is, there is something wrong with the entire history of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So when they're telling us the ancient Rome, Rome was Istanbul. Yes, and that the biggest city in the world. Who do you think you're going to find in this biggest city? All the Bill Gates, all the Rockefellers. You're going to find the Vatican there. You are going to find the biggest elite in the world there 400 years ago. Yes or no? Yes, it was the
Certainly,
New
yes.
York, the Paris, the London. It was not, Congo or Zimbabwe. You see, the rest of the world, they had these walled cities from India, yes, to China, to Africa, to the Americas, to Europe. They just had small walled cities wherever you go. That people are saying, hey, we can find these star fort cities. Yeah, it was for them. They had the best defense for their families. You see, and so many people have found something wrong with it. Now go on to the next page. So ancient Egypt was actually the Middle Ages. We're talking 12th century, 15th century. And so here it is. Yes, it's not ancient. It's just 500 years ago. So what were the people there 500 years ago in Egypt? You could read
So
this.
clothing in ancient Egypt, as you say, only a few hundred years ago, the slaves worked naked, peasants, workers, and other people of modest condition wore nothing, but the shanty was worn by all people.
Shanty, some people, yeah, they're disputing what it is, a piece of white cloth cotton, because Egypt was producing so much, just to hide your, private part, not hide it, because it got in the way of the work of the peasants, you see. Oh, if you were an official peasant, you got it. Yeah, because you had to work, or the rest of them were basically naked. So now on the next page, you'll see all these pictures, that they painted 16th, 17th century, and they'll show you that they all had clothes. This was a famous painter, Adrian Jans van Ostade. You've seen many of these paintings, yes? So now go on to the next page, and you can find out about him. He's from the 17th century. He's one of the most famous, and he was a Dutch, Adrian van Ostade. Who was he? He was a Dutch golden
He was a Dutch Golden Age painter.
of Gina works or genre or however. So now go on the next page and you could read this, and you can even quote which website, so that any peasants who are listening will know this for a fact.
So this is from galerics.org, Galerics Online Museum, Adrian van Ostade, 1610 to 1685. In the paintings of the Dutchman van Ostade, naked peasants were painted over.
What did you say they did to the naked peasants?
They were painted over.
Ah, or they played around with the paintings so that you think they've got clothes. Now go back 2 pages. Yeah, make these pictures bigger. Let's have a look at them. Yeah, peasants with clothes and everything. That's what you're going to imagine. The people of Europe were like that. Bullstein. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's just garbage. It's a lie. It's a total lie. You're imagining things. The people were like that. They had clothes. No, they modified many of the paintings and other things. Not just his paintings, in many of the other paintings. Yeah, and then they falsified the history. They falsified many of the paintings and things like this. Things like that, so that nobody can know. It's because they don't want you to know. But now, what are you beginning to see? The people in Northern Europe 400 or 500 years ago, what were they? Did they have clothes or did they not?
Well, though the regular people outside the city walls, apparently they didn't have clothes, but here they are
Yeah, and
painted with
could
clothes.
they even speak a language? They're living out in the fields, in the mud, eating mud. All the
No,
animals and livestock are controlled within the city walls. Imagine if you've
right.
got some sheep and you're a naked peasant. What do you think I'm going to do? Sending out my knights, yes, who have castrated. Are they going to let you keep your sheep?
No.
No. Ha! Clothes were rare. If you're wearing any clothes and they look nice, what do you think my knights are going to do to you with your clothes? They're taking them.
Yeah,
So
and hang me on a tree probably.
don't even bother hanging you. I don't have to hang you because there was that much cannibalism. All the others are going to eat you anyway. You see, so I don't have to worry. Yes. So now on the next page. Yes. So the thing is, they've falsified the history, but the thing is, so what they did was to take people further north to Lithuania. Next page. Yes, the Livonian War. Yes. So the one after. Yes. And so what they did was they imported German peasants in depopulated areas, in the 16th, 17th centuries, taking people further north. Yes. And things like this. There was people there, but very less. And so the thing is, go on to the next page. Yes. And you could read this. Yes. When the peasants revolted, yeah, these German peasants, what did these peasants look like? You could read this.
So this is from 1573, Hans Boye of Genèse. Big picture, the Livonian War ran from 1558 to 1583. They drove naked peasants into great fires.
Did you say the peasants had clothes? These pests and
No,
these
it
beasts?
says naked peasants.
Ah, so now going to the next page, you could just read the first sentence. Yes, this is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Yes, and there's
The
many
title
paintings and everything.
of this
Yes.
painting is Battle Between Peasants and Naked Men in a
Yeah, because
Forest.
the official peasants are the pests and the beasts, who were a minority. Yes, or the majority of the 80% were totally naked, and I've kept about 10-20% of the world's people because they're working for me. These dogs and animal beasts and peasants, yeah, in the fields, and some of them are making clothes, some of them are doing this, some of them I've turned them into monks. Yeah, castrated them. I've allowed them to grow up in these orders so that they're writing down the history, writing things of our family, drawing pictures. Some of them are singing songs. Some of the women I brought them, for my brothers, my sons, my uncles in the family. They need sex, things like this. So what do you call it? But you could read it. Yes, the battle.
Yeah, as I said, the battle between peasants and naked men in a forest.
Yeah, because the normal people, yes, the majority of the people in Europe were actually naked. Yes, you can actually see this. Now go on to the next page. Now something was happening in Northern Europe in the 16th century. In the north, peasants' war, the peasants uprising, yeah, in Germany. Yes, inspired
Inspired by
by.
changes brought by the Reformation, peasants in Western and Southern Germany.
Yeah, basically they were revolting. Yes, but the greatest event that changed history was the fall of the capital of all the royal elite families. And the capital was which city?
Constantinople.
And who was it that stormed it? Who destroyed them
The
there?
Prophet Muhammad with
Yes, the
whoever else.
Sultan Muhammad. Yes.
Yes.
And this is what caused the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, everything, the Renaissance, everything happened. And the Renaissance was their Renaissance. Yeah. If you read my book, The Last Crusade, you'll realize that the normal people didn't see the Renaissance. Now go on to the next page. So they're going to say Caesar or the Khazar or the Caesar or these Roman Caesars. There's no Rome. It was in Istanbul. So they were always fighting these people. You could read what was life really like in Europe 500 years ago for these Khazars or Caesars who were in Istanbul. Yes,
A
you could read
group
it.
of half-naked barbarians with swords and axes fought uh, against the formation of Caesar's soldiers. The
Yeah, so they were
barbarians seemed
basically
eager to
naked.
fight without a sign of fear.
Yeah, so they called them the Gaul or Galts or Celts or whatever. And the Germanic people, they were naked. Yes, and they're going to say it was 1,000 years ago, but really it was 500 years ago. So now go into the next page. A short history of England. And medieval civilization. This is 500 years ago, the Middle Ages. Yes, and you could read this. Medieval civilization arose
This is
out of
from
the
Gilbert Keith Chesterton, Short History of England. Medieval civilization arose out of the resistance to the naked barbarians from the north and the more subtle barbarians from the east.
yes. So the thing is, they're calling them basically naked people. It's because in the south, yes, there was more cities. When you look at these walled cities in Spain, in Italy, in the Balkans, and things like this, and it was warmer, so there was more people there, and the people went north, and they became wider. Yes, and so of course, go on to the next page. And if you haven't seen, we did two videos about the Celts and the Druids. Yes, if people haven't watched those videos, they're not going to understand that the history of the Druids is a total lie. Yes, and so the thing is, everybody knows about this. You could read it. The ancient Celts capture.
The ancient Celts capture the modern imagination, as do few other people of classical times. Naked
Naked.
barbarians charging the Roman legions.
Yeah, so
And
they're going
Druids
to say it
performing.
was, 2,000 years ago, but really it was like 500 years ago and the Roman legions were all these city armies and their soldiers, and Constantinople was the capital, and it was their legions were in the west in Europe, in the east in India and China, and the world it was their world order, who you are going to call the ruling families of the children of Israel, or the children of Noah, or the Caesars, or the Khazars, or the Khazars. People are talking about the so-called Khazars. It was the Khazars, or Caesars, or the Caesars. It's the same thing. It's the same royal families. It's not some invented history. People are imagining the Khazars and other things. And so, but there is something to do with Kazan and Moses, but that's another thing. So now the next page, you could read it. Europe during the Middle Ages. This is Europe during the Middle Ages, 500 years ago.
So yet the Picts were but a handful of half-naked barbarians, whom tradition, as noted by Bede, had brought from Scythia, that is, from the north.
Yeah, basically, yes. These Northern European people were basically naked or half naked. And then they're going to tell you that they wore sheepskin. Even that's a lie, because there's no sheep there. Yeah. So the thing is, these people were half naked until this Muhammad's revolution. Yes, that happened, and he did it from the north. That's why all the Arabic coins are found where? In Europe.
In Europe, yeah.
Where? Which part of Europe specifically?
Well, I guess middle, northern Europe.
Northern Europe and Eastern Europe. So you see, and so now, in case somebody is thinking, oh no, they had sheepskin, I'm imagining them with their, sticks, wooden logs, and metal, any kind of things, and barbarians with sheepskin or something like that. Read the next page. Yes, our wool-cut English ancestors. Yeah, 500 years ago, the social structure
In the Middle Ages was not really conducive to something. In any case, the sheep were owned by the landowners.
Yeah, do you think I'm gonna leave some sheep around if I found them? With these naked people or whatever? I would think, whoa,
Right.
breeding sheep and everything, it's a difficult job. I've got, they had many children in them days. I've got 5 sons, or with all the women I've been sleeping with, 6, 7. I've got to build small city walls so that my sons could live inside them, and they need sheep. So now on the next page, here is real history, real. So you could read this. Yes, in the Middle Ages.
This is about merino sheep. In the Middle Ages, the sheep finally reached Spain. So initially, the sheep
Where
were
wool was red. Yes.
where wool was rare. So initially, the sheep were owned only by the church or by the nobility.
Yeah, soon we'll go through who is the church and the nobility and who the elite are. But the thing is, there's no sheep in the north. It's just arrived, 500-600 years ago in Spain, Italy, and these other things. It took another 2 centuries to get up north. The breeding and everything, they're lying. They're lying. So they didn't have the cotton. They didn't have the sheep. So what were people like in Northern Europe, Raphael, outside the city walls?
Naked and speechless.
Yeah, they were naked. They were pests. They were beasts. They were animals. You see? And so go on to the next page. Yes. And so this is just in China. We're talking, 50, 60 years ago. So, Chairman Mao and his revolution. Yes, you could read it at the time of liberation.
The peasants were naked and on the verge of starvation.
Yeah, we've even seen pictures what it's like. So you don't need to imagine it. And so on the next page, if you haven't read my books, Ancient Egypt is not ancient. Yes, they have built half these buildings new, or ancient Egypt was just 500 years ago. The pyramids, is just in the last few hundred years. And ancient Greece also didn't exist. So it's just a lie, all this history. You know what I mean? So they've exaggerated and invented all this history. Yes. So these things, people won't understand these things unless if they're going to read these books and all these other things, and then go through the history and go through it themselves. Yes. So here is an example of Antwerp. Yes. And we can see, it's just a few streets, a few blocks. And it's not even a block like we're talking today, that a block has 10 buildings. We're talking about, like very small, cramped, whatever. It's a star fort city. It's for the elites. And so make it a bit bigger. Yes, so that people can see these things very clearly themselves. Make the picture a bit bigger. And you could see that, the Starfort city and everything. So it's like there's places for the sheep and the storage for other things, the soldiers and many other things, and their things. So the thing is, all these cities in Europe were small, and the thing is, it's just for the what we call children of Israel, or B'nai Israel in Arabic. Yes, in the Quran, and B'nai Noah and B'nai Adam, and these ruling elite families who intermarried only with each other. Go on to the next page. So we can see that there is nowhere for all these peasants or these pests and these beasts, apart from a few. So now you could read this. You could read this even in Germany. Yes, in World War II, but that was because of the war. But it wasn't difficult to imagine, and it's freezing temperatures, minus freezing temperatures, and you could read this.
Yes, this is from erenow.org, the new strategic landscape. People lived in holes in the ground. It was scarcely
Oh, by the
surprising,
way,
therefore.
in some of these websites, it's these websites aren't worth reading out. It's common history, and that's no Mr. Nobody's history. So yeah, start again. I'm just telling you this now because it's actually on some of them it's useless. Yeah. So in World War II and after that in the 1950s, many people throughout Europe. Here is a small example. Where did they live? You could read the first sentence.
People lived in holes in the ground.
Yeah, freezing temperatures, things like this. There was a shortage of food. God knows what they ate. There was a lot of cannibalism, and also go on the next page. So there was a lot of cannibalism and all these crazy things that happened. Yeah. So here we could see, yes, It's because what they're telling us, and many people, yes, the population didn't go up until mysteriously, that the population doesn't change until halfway through which century?
Well, this is
It
the
starts to
20,
go up.
yeah, it starts to go
Yes,
up, let's say 18th century and then 19th
yeah.
century.
Now make that graph a bit bigger, a lot bigger along the bottom. Yes, a lot bigger there. Now stop. No, make it smaller now. Smaller, smaller, smaller. Make it half that size. Yeah, now stop. You will see, you will see that the population didn't go up until the year around 1000 to 1100. And so this is where Fomenko has estimated, yes, something must have happened and the population doubled. And it's because if people are living like naked barbarians and cannibalism and everything, so the population is moving forward and we can't see anything until the population, you can see, doubled, because Jesus Christ's followers, the Cathars and the others, a few real ones, yes, they built these Khazars or Cathars, yeah, and they built a few others, yes, copying the Caesars or the Caesars, and they built these walled cities, yes. Yeah. So and they were doing it and they were trying to survive, but they had to go. Yes, because now these people are spreading the information, and so the number of people are going up. And then go to the 14th, 15th century, we can see that the population is static, and there's crusades going on throughout the Middle Ages. Nobody is moving forward until from the year 1100. The population doesn't move forward until when?
Well, it really starts picking up around, let's say 1600 here.
No, no, we're doing a full assessment. From the year
All right.
1100, we can see the population is constant and doesn't move until when? Keep going. Yeah, you can see, I can see your arrow. Move your
Yeah.
arrow along. Yeah, it's not moving.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not
here
growing.
in 1400
Until when?
maybe.
14,
1400.
yes, halfway through 14 to 1500. And what happened in 1453?
All right, this was
The
with
fall of
Granada.
the fall of Constantinople, Istanbul.
Hmm.
This is official history. So from there, they've modified it. Yes, the dating, but the thing is, they haven't cleared up everything in history. So then you could see that the population doubles again around the world, and it's Prophet Muhammad's revolution around the world. Yes, and so then they do the Renaissance and the Jesuits form in the 15th century. Yes, and everything. So the population doubled from 1500 to 1600, and it's going up to 1700 and everything. And so what we could see is this Muhammad's movement is going like crazy all over the world. And we see that the peasants are wearing these clothes. Now, we saw what type of clothes they're wearing, the hijab and everything, but no, people are going to say, oh, it's tradition in the farms or in the villages. Now, you can see the real tradition. Were they wearing these hijab and all these clothes, or were they naked?
Outside, they were naked.
They were naked. So now this Muhammad's revolution spreads throughout Europe, throughout the world. We could see as far as Japan, people are wearing this. And so now we can see that the elite are going to think we're going to have to deal with this. Muhammad has changed world history.